Right, good evening. This is David Rod, president of the Central Indiana AFL-CIO. We have 40 plus locals, 50,000 members here in Central Indiana, and it's an honor today for us to do our labor town hall meeting with our elected officials here in Central Indiana. And why we're doing our town halls is because, of course, due to the pandemic, we weren't able to do Labor Fest, which is the event that we've been doing to celebrate labor, our unions, and our hardworking brothers and sisters all over the state. But here in Central Indiana, we have the event. So what we've done is we've been on the radio and doing radio ads. We've been doing commercials with our different unions, and we decided that what we would like to do is have our officials on, our elected officials, and have them speak a little bit about labor and what it does. We also have an event that will be down on the circle playing. The circle is called the Shining of Lights, and it will also put a bright light on us in labor and the unions here in Central Indiana. So I'm glad that everyone could be on. One thing that I get to do is get to introduce Miss Joanne Saunders, who is the International Vice President and also our Secretary of Treasury for our Executive Board in Central Indiana. So Miss Joanne, can you take it away?
Thank you so much, David, and thanks to everybody who's tuning in. I appreciate that we're able to provide this program to you today. It's very fitting. We have a list of panelists who will speak on particular issues, and because of the fact that yesterday was actually, we celebrated Women's Equality Day, to me, it's most fitting that we're going to start the conversation with Jessica Frazier from the Indiana Institute for Working Families. Jessica, we welcome you. And one of the things that we're interested in hearing from you, or a couple of things, is what is the Institute currently doing in terms of paid leave as well as equal pay?
Thank you for including me in this discussion today, Joanne and David. Let me tell everyone a little bit about the Institute. First off, the Indiana Institute for Working Families advocates for public policies to help Hoosier families achieve financial well-being. We value, gather, and translate data and stories to help us communicate the opportunities and challenges that Hoosiers experience. And then we try to put those things together into good evidence-based solutions that then we can take to policymakers and the public. So that's a little about how we do our work. So you asked what we are doing on equal pay and paid leave. So I'm going to start with equal pay. Indiana has the third largest wage gap in the country. The median earnings of Hoosier women working full-time are $13,615 lower than full-time working men. And the gap is even wider for women of color. This gap cannot be explained away by occupational differences, education, work hours. Pay discrimination is absolutely part of what is causing the gender wage gap. And even though there are some federal and state laws to protect against this, a lot more needs to be done to update and strengthen these laws. So at the state level, we're working in coalition to support a salary history ban. This would prevent employers in Indiana from asking about prior pay, and it must also include a salary range for job announcements. The reason this is important for equal pay is because women job applicants, especially women of color, are likely to have lower prior salaries than male applicants. So when employers request that applicant salary history as part of the hiring process, it forces those applicants to carry past pay discrimination forward to their new job, and then that just happens job to job to job, carrying that pay discrimination forward. There's new research to suggest that employers may even screen out applicants altogether if they have a low salary because they assume they don't have the skills to do the job. And even when they do hire an applicant, the old salary can act as an anchor in those pay negotiations. So they start with a lower initial offer, and then all the counter offers are lower than they would be also. And we just think this is the right time to work on this issue, because with the pandemic, a lot of people are going to be applying for new jobs. And so this is the moment to level that playing field. At the federal level, our coalition has been supporting the Paycheck Fairness Act. This is an act that closes loopholes that allow employers to justify paying workers unfairly. It provides stronger remedies when employees have suffered from discrimination. It stops retaliation against workers who discuss their pay. And it prohibits employers, again, from using salary history. So this would be that same thing at the federal level. And then provide some training and technical assistance. So this act has already passed the U.S. House of Representatives, and now it's the Senate's turn to ensure that women have the tools they need to bring home the paychecks they deserve. So the Equality Pays Indiana Coalition, which we are a member of, has been urging our Indiana senators at the U.S. Senate to support this important bill. Another thing we can do to shrink the gender pay gap is to get rid of the sub-minimum tipped wage and replace it with one fair wage. Tipped workers are disproportionately represented by women and people of color. And we're excited to join One Fair Wage, Women Make Movies, and more than 20 economic, racial, and gender justice organizations for a virtual screening of the film Waging Change and a panel discussion. That's going to take place on Thursday, September 10th at 7 p.m. and you can get more information about it on the Institute's Facebook page. Whew, I'm going to take a deep breath and then I'll keep going for paid leave. The Institute has been researching paid leave for a really long time, and so we know a lot about it, and this is what we know. We know that nearly all workers will at some point in their working life need to take time off, either for their own health, to welcome a new baby, to care for an aging loved one, and they should be able to do that without losing their job or facing financial ruin. Establishing a paid family and medical leave program is a smart strategy to provide workers with paid time off, but also to make Hoosier businesses more attractive places to work, to improve health outcomes and our state's economy. When people have paid family and medical leave and people know they won't lose their job or suffer large losses of wages, then they know they can spend their money in local businesses. So that helps everyone. And studies have shown that workers who have paid family and medical leave are healthier, less stressed, and more productive. So I probably don't have to do a lot to convince you guys on the merits of paid leave. So let me tell you what we're hoping to do about it. At the state level, we've worked with many lawmakers over the years to put forth a proposal that would grant both medical and family paid leave to Hoosier workers. But at the federal level, we have a real opportunity right now to fight to expand access to the emergency paid sick and caregiver leave in the next COVID-19 relief package. We know that the paid leave provided by the Families First Act is working in Indiana. The Census Bureau has been putting out survey data on how families are faring during this pandemic. And in Indiana, 0% of the Hoosiers who have had access to paid leave during this pandemic have experienced food insecurity. But we know that the Families First paid leave program is not reaching everyone. There were loopholes that cut out many workers, including healthcare workers, essential workers, and employees of businesses with over 500 employees. In Indiana, that last carve out alone cuts out an estimated 1.5 million Hoosiers from the program. So the next COVID package must close these loopholes. Also, these provisions are temporary. And while we'd eventually like to see a permanent federal paid leave solution, we know that's not going to happen in the next COVID relief package. But what does need to be in the next COVID relief package is an expansion, like I mentioned, but also an extension that is not an arbitrary date set in the future at some random date, but is actually tied to when the need for caregiving in this crisis has passed. So those are the things related to paid leave and equal pay. I know we got started a little bit late, but I just want to quickly list off some of the other issues that we work on that also affect Hoosiers' well-being. We work on issues of the social safety net, such as SNAP and rental assistance, childcare. We work on protecting consumers from predatory lenders. We work on accommodations for pregnant workers, equitable budget and tax policies as well. So if any of that interests you, you can find us at www.incap.org/IIWF and sign up for our newsletter. We're on Facebook and Instagram at in.institute and on Twitter at INInstitute. Thank you. Have I answered all the questions, Joanne?
Yes, thank you so much, Jessica. That was a great summary of what you all are doing. And we'll make sure that we post all of your contact information so that our viewers can get ready access to it. And
Thank
I
you
just
so
want
much.
to add that one of the points that you were making, especially about equal pay, for women who are listening, you can earn equal pay when you join a union. It's important to know that joining a union, your job is what is rated at what value. It is not the person holding the job. And so the more we can spread that message around, I think the more women will be able to realize that if they want equal pay, it's time to join a union. And that's my little PSA for the moment.
All
So
right.
next up, again, in keeping with some of the stuff we've been celebrating this August, we have City County Councilor Kristen Jones, who represents part of the downtown area of Indianapolis, as well as part of the southwest side. And I say as part of our celebration, we all know that on August 18th, we celebrated 100 years since the last state ratified the 19th Amendment. And once that 19th Amendment was ratified, for white women, it still was a struggle for women of color to get the vote. But the additional struggle was women attaining elected office. And I'm proud to say that here we have a couple of women who have done that, one of whom is Kristen. So Kristen, we would like for you to talk to us about how being a union member has affected some of your decision-making on the City Council.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. And thank you very much for having me here tonight. It's very special to be here and to recognize Labor Day. For me, it's very special. I've been a spouse of a UAW worker and former president for almost 30 years now. And for me, as soon as I was elected to the City Council, one of my first steps was I wanted to be a union member myself. So I became AFSCME Local 725 so that I could be my own union member. And I think it's very important to be a union member. And one thing that I've become aware of and come to appreciate is the importance of looking at proposals through the lens of a worker. And that came in greater focus today. Up until today, I had a job at a nonprofit, but today I actually received a letter from that nonprofit that I work for. They're not organized. And it's very important that any jobs that we can get organized become organized, because this job I work for did not offer any grievance procedures. They did not hold any respect for seniority. The letter I received was from the CEO and president, and informed me that due to COVID, my temporary layoff, which happened back in March, would now become permanent.
Wow.
And they offered to pack up my belongings and deliver them to my porch. No phone calls, no meeting, no thanking me for my years of service, no severance, just a letter letting me go. And I had no recourse because they're not organized. And you know, being on the council has offered me an opportunity to look out for everyone who is not a president or CEO of a corporation, and how I look at proposals would and do affect the workers. I've been that worker. I've seen the inside of a nonprofit that's not organized. And it's ugly when it's not organized. And we need that for our workers. How and will such an ordinance affect the people on the ground who come to work every day for the city that they love? I think oftentimes that legislation may have failed to consider that very important aspect. In other words, if we do this or that in order to try and make our city a better place to live and work, how does that affect the people who are actually on the ground making that change happen? I try and not look at only does this provide a better service to our citizens, but also is it safe for our workers? I got to see a lot firsthand I sit on Public Works Committee for DPW. And so I got to see a lot of the safety issues that they took. And I'm so proud of our city, and I'm so proud, Mr. Bride can attest to, I'm so proud of the safety measures that Local 725 and DPW took for our city. during COVID and all the different things that we've had to endure over the last few months. We should be proud as a city that because they had the union backing and they had those union contracts, they had those union precautions, that they protected their workers. So they had those precautions. But is there a way to make sure that these folks have the necessary tools and the proper training to complete the work that they're assigned? In District 16, we have a lot of economic development. And when it's being proposed, I often look at whether that project is going to use union labor. And once it's complete, are the employees going to receive a fair wage and benefit? If the tax dollars are being used to help build something, then the employees who are eventually going to work in that building, are they going to benefit from that project? Not just the corporation. These are the things that I, as a union member, try and make sure that they're being properly addressed. And I can tell you that I will always stand up for organized labor, and I'm so proud to do so.
Well, Kristen, I am so sorry to hear how your situation was handled with the not-for-profit. It's unfortunate that employers don't show, from my perspective, more compassion under the circumstances.
Absolutely. And it gives me compassion. I've seen that. And it gives us reason that as union workers, we need to go in and help organize and protect those workers. It's not just how we're treated and respect, it's safety issues too, as well. But I'm proud, you know, I think we have a lot to be proud in our city. As I said, I got to witness firsthand a lot of our DPW workers and the safety precautions that they took in our COVID era, how they protected their workers.
And that's so very important. And we're proud to have you on the City Council representing part of the downtown area as well as the southwest side. We know that there's a lot of development going on in those areas. And if you're committed to, because you're committed to looking at development from a different perspective and recognizing the impact it can have across the community, we trust that those decisions will be made and the city will be better for them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, in keeping with our elected officials who happen to be women, next we have our state representative, Robin Shackelford, who's from the east side of Indianapolis. And Robin has been key to the Black Caucus at the State House. I believe you're the current leader of the Black Caucus, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So we have much to be proud of in Robin, and we certainly appreciate the work that you're doing. So today we'd like you to talk to us about what we might expect in the upcoming legislative session.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. So I would say we definitely can expect to see a lot of policies that affect healthcare, not only the systems, but the costs due to the pandemic and how it affects the Black and Brown community. We did a whole task force on minority health disparities. We came out with a report and recommendations. We will be reviewing that information over the summer, doing summer study committees, but expect to see a lot of legislation dealing with the healthcare system. Also, look for policy and justice reform. Because of what has happened in our nation, we will see a lot of legislation being pushed to make sure that our city and state is more equal when it comes to the justice system. And this is not only a look at law enforcement, but it will also look at the system that creates and reinforces trauma in these communities and our communities, like our education system, our mental health plan, and so many more issues. Additionally, we will work on legislation that deals with the response to COVID-19. And Councilwoman Jones, I am so sorry what happened to you. I have heard this happening to others. I do believe some employers may use this pandemic as an excuse to let go of some of those employees that they want to let go and try to increase their profit margin. So we will do everything we can to make sure we're protecting workers during the pandemic and make sure that you're treated fairly. You will also see legislation dealing with paid leave, hazard pay, suspended license assistance, unemployment, housing, working accommodations. Some of these we have tried to get pushed through before, but we will be even more aggressive this session. And I think we have a lot of backing from the community and that advocacy. So I think you will see legislators more prone to maybe actually do some change that will be very effective to help out our workers. You asked about hate crimes, I believe, earlier. The IBLC will continue to push for a comprehensive and all-inclusive hate crime legislation. We have worked on this for about the past 14, 15 years, but you will see that included in our justice reform agenda. And then additionally, I think you wanted me to touch on the Tenants Protection Bill. I introduced that bill last session, and one of the main reasons, when you have Fort Wayne and Indianapolis, our most populous cities rank 13th and 14th respectively for the nation eviction rates, and with the COVID-19 eviction moratorium lifted come August 15th, or on August 15th, there is a great need that we now focus on improving our community's quality of life and make sure that we're protecting our tenants. My House bill last year, it would have done a couple of things. It would have extended the pay or quit, and that is the time a landlord may terminate a lease for non-payment, from 10 days to 14 days. It also would have removed a provision permitting termination of a rental agreement without any notice. It would allow a prevailing tenant in a landlord-tenant case to expunge records relating to the action. Right now, you see those, it's stand on their record when they do a background check and try to get a new house and a new apartment. Even if they won the case, it still stand on there as an eviction. So we're trying to get those expunged. It would also establish a procedure permitting a tenant to withhold rent from a landlord and deposit it in an escrow account at the local level. I know we got a lot of pushback for this, but this is only if the landlord has failed to comply with the landlord's statutory obligations, or if the rental unit is in violation of an ordinance, rule, code, or other law, and the violation may materially affect the health and safety of the tenant. So I'm trying to push it to make sure that tenants have the right to withhold that rent. And then within that legislation, we put in their specifications of when that rent can be returned, or if it can be returned to the tenant or the landlord based on certain requirements to actually either the tenant can do the remedy or the landlord could do the remedy. And then we had a fee in there to help local government pay for the escrow accounts. So that is the rental agreement legislation. And then I would just note that there was a COVID-19 task force put together on tenant relations and recommendations. They came out with about 4 long-term recommendations. These were some of our judges and attorneys in our small claims court, and that actually deal with evictions every day. So some of the things they want us to look into is opportunities for mediation and online dispute resolution, diversion programs, evaluation of the impact of landlord registries on tenants, future ability to access affordable housing, and also associated financial implications, and then evaluation of the impact of credit for individuals who have experienced evictions, including how long the event stays on a credit report, what options exist or can be implemented to lessen long-term barriers. So those are just a couple of things we'll be working on at the State House, and you'll continue to see us. And if you have any more ideas, or which I'm sure you guys do, then just please get them to us, and we'll make sure that we'll continue to advocate for them.
Thank you so much. It sounds like you're really going to be busy this next session, Robin. And I do know that the Black Legislative Caucus had requested a special session. I believe at this point in time, that's just in limbo. Nothing's happening there. Is that correct?
Well, we haven't heard anything from the governor regarding a special session. It was the House Democrats and the Senate Democrats and the Black Caucus, but we haven't heard a yay or nay as far as there's going to be a special session or not.
Okay, well, I'd just like to take this moment to tell all of those people that are watching us tonight, fill out your census. People like Representative Shackelford need help in the House, and we need help in the Senate to break through those super majorities that keep all this work that she's just defined for us that much more difficult to get accomplished. So please fill out your census and open the door to those census workers when it comes time for you to be able to be interviewed by them. It's very important for your representation. Again, thank you so much, Robin. We're so happy to have you here with us today. Next, we have a person of the male persuasion. This person needs little or no introduction, but we are very pleased to have Mayor Joe Hogsett with us this afternoon. And Mayor Hogsett, we know that this has been a most challenging time. If anyone wants to envy you, I think this is not the period of time in which they would be envious by any stretch. But what we would like to hear, if possible, if you could give us an update on some of the things that are going on since the pandemic has hit and some of the difficulties you're facing in the city. Unmute.
Yeah, thank you, Joanne, for that kind introduction. Thanks as well to my good friend David Bride for helping keep Labor Fest on our calendars this year. I'm sure it wasn't easy. I also want to acknowledge my town hall partners on tonight's Zoom. Jessica, thank you for the good work you do fighting for equal justice for all Americans every day, all Hoosiers. Kristen Jones is a rock star. There's no other way to describe her. And she's doing a marvelous job representing her constituents in the city of Indianapolis. Robin is the leader of our Black Caucus, our state's legislative Black Caucus. We work very closely together. And you're right, Joanne. Robin is fighting against all odds. The numbers are not in our favor over there. So returning Robin and maybe some other pro-labor people to that caucus would go a long way toward helping us out. And I'd be remiss if I did not, even though he hadn't been introduced yet, throw some love to my partner at the federal level, Congressman Andre Carson, who you'll hear from in just a moment. In answer to your question, Joanne, I think it's fair to say that the last 6 months, we are celebrating our city's bicentennial this year. We are 200 years old. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that the last 6 months in the city of Indianapolis might very well be the toughest 6 months in the 200-year history of our city. From the very beginning of the pandemic up until today, what has given me a great deal of pride is to see just how important labor is to this nation, to our state, to our city in a time of crisis. Grocery workers, delivery drivers, warehouse stockers, letter carriers, not to mention our brave teachers, our brave police, and obviously, as Kristen mentioned, our brave DPW workers, which, by the way, I got to throw in some promotion. Here's my AFSCME honorary membership card. I'm a member in good standing. So
Life.
Thank you, Local 725. Joanne, the very questions you're asking are important because it's why Kristen and her colleagues and the city administration all joined together and pledged to keep all workplaces safe to the extent that we can. That's why we have allocated COVID-related support from the CARES Act, thanks to Congressman Carson, for sending $168 million our way that we're using to make sure that all necessary PPEs that keeps employees safe who return to work, and we have provided PPEs to both for-profit and not-for-profit institutions to protect our workers. It's why our Marion County Health Department will serve fines to businesses who fail to enforce social distancing or the health department's mandate to wear masks for the safety of both worker and customer alike. We now wait for a major development or a vaccine to fully allow the safe return of our in-person workforce. But in the meantime, we have made a deliberate and informed decision on reopening slowly, safely, with more to come. We did see a return in July of spike in the positivity rate. But because we implemented our face mask requirement, because we are requiring social distancing, and because we've taken the steps to ensure the safety of our workers and the safety of all of the public, I'm pleased to report that our positivity rate in the month of August has started to decline. We're not there yet, but we're on our way back down to where we need to be to have a safe workplace for all of our workers. In addition to the centrality of labor that the pandemic has exposed, as Representative Shackelford mentioned, something else we've seen is the gulf that remains between race and class in our society. The labor movement has a role to play here as well. You know, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King once observed, by raising the living standards of millions, the labor movement miraculously created a market for industry and lifted the whole nation to undreamed of levels of production. So the purpose that we celebrate this Labor Day has never been more obvious than in the year 2020. A recognition and a celebration of the history of the labor movement in America can guide us toward a better policy in our lifetime. And if it does, and if we unite for an equitable administration of that policy, we'll once again experience undreamed of levels of prosperity for all of the people of the city of Indianapolis. So in conclusion, as mayor, I am very pleased, and David and Joanne, you can be the formal recipients of a proclamation declaring from the city of Indianapolis, declaring September 5, 2020 as Indy Labor Fest Day in the city of Indianapolis. So let's all join together, work together, unite together for a better tomorrow and for all of organized labor. Thanks.
Really
Thank
do
you, Mayor.
appreciate that.
We do appreciate that so much. And generally speaking, that would have been down on Georgia Street Mall as we were surrounded by 20,000 of our close friends from throughout central Indiana. But unfortunately, as labor, or fortunately as labor, we've learned to be flexible. So virtual Labor Day is carrying on and getting our message out. And we thank you so much for joining us today and for the proclamation.
Yeah.
It's all good. Okay. Well, another person who needs little or no introduction, who I have always referred to over time as my favorite congressperson. He used to actually represent me. And then they gerrymandered my area out of his district in hopes that he would lose his elections. And he went on to further win his elections with even more of a plurality. So, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Congressman Andre Carson. Congressman, thank you for being with us.
Adam Sanders, Joanne, thank you so much. And you know, you and I have conversations often. I'm a big cheerleader of yours, and I'll leave that there. But thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your passion and your intellect and all that you do to bring attention to the issues that labor has to navigate through. And we appreciate you. To Kristen, my heart goes out to you. Keep up the good fight. You have a support network, citywide, statewide, that has your back. So keep the faith, keep powering forward. Jessica, JF, thank you. Robin, thank you for your brilliance and your leadership and your hard work. I'll see you on the other side, but thank you. DB, Brother David, D Beasy, D Bizzle, thank you, brother. Proud of you. Keep up the good work. Congratulations on the party side too. And, you know, to the best mayor, I was excited, Mayor. I saw the new Batman trailer. I couldn't help but think of you and your hard work. I think this is the part in the movie where the tables turn on those folks who want to bring down Gotham City, but it has caused an awakening of sorts. We're having an honest conversation about racial injustice, social injustice, sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia, all of the isms. So there's a silver lining in this, and Mayor, just stay strong, my brother. Keep up the good fight. Of course, the mayor, we're partners in crime prevention and detection. So thank you, Mayor. You know, as you all know, our nation continues to experience the worst pandemic of the century. Health, our economy, and social calamity. We're losing more than, I think, 1,000 of our fellow Americans each day to COVID-19. House Democrats, we continue to step up. And over the past 3 months since we've passed the HEROES Act, we've been trying to urge Mitch McConnell, who's trying deliberately to protect a third of his membership who are up on the ballot this year. They've hit the pause button. And it's unfortunate when you have senators whose constituents are suffering, just like Hoosiers, in rural parts of their district, in urban parts of their district. They refuse to stand in solidarity with organized labor and House Democrats because they fear a president who could come into their state, sometimes their district, and say, you know what, I love the great state of XYZ, but your senator, he's really crummy. And that person is afraid because it could jeopardize their reelection efforts. What a time to live in right now. You know, they've chosen politics and ideology over responsibility to keep Americans safe and supported. So with the HEROES Act sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk, collecting dust, I think Americans continue to get sick. They die, unfortunately. We've seen job losses. We've seen businesses crumble. Our Republican buddies, they let the expanded unemployment insurance expire. It's left over 30 million Americans without critical emergencies, care, and economic lifeline for their sustainability. It's unacceptable. It's unconscionable. I know I won't stop fighting, nor will the Democrats stop fighting on behalf of the American people. Secondly, as it relates to the Postal Service, I think Mr. DeJoy's appearance in front of both the House and the Senate, it doesn't undo the damage that he's done to the United States Postal Service. It won't undo the slowdown in mail or the threat that his decisions pose to a fair election. His appearance certainly doesn't alleviate the deep concerns we all still have about the current management of the Postal Service, but we all have a constitutional duty, I believe, to protect the Postal Service and effectively maintain its delivery of life-saving medicines, critical supplies during a pandemic, not to mention our duty to ensure a fair election this coming November. So he's proven that he's unfit, but that's why, you know, Joanne said that my numbers were higher by the grace of God and the hard work that we put in, Team Carson puts in, and the support of all of you and those watching. We couldn't do this without organized labor. I remain committed to protecting our right to collectively bargain and organize for better pay, better conditions, and better safety. You know, COVID-19 has really presented an interesting set of challenges. So many people are being forced to work despite stay-at-home orders, and many more are now even returning to workplaces without the protection they need from the spread of this terrible disease. That's why I fought so hard in the CARES Act to include emergency funding for personal protective equipment and other health protections. Our workers, especially our frontline workers, deserve all the protection that they can get. You know, I was also a proud sponsor of the PRO Act, which passed the House last February. This legislation provides additional protections for workers and unions, including stopping unfair labor practices, protecting workers from retaliation, and weakening so-called right-to-work laws. I want to urge my colleagues to take up this legislation immediately. Unemployment. We know that millions of Americans have lost their jobs due to the disruption of COVID-19. These job losses have been devastating for families in our communities, and Congress reacted very swiftly in March to provide short-term relief to fellow Americans through expanded unemployment insurance benefits. We provided an additional $600 a week in benefits. However, again, Senate Republicans, President Trump allowed these enhanced benefits to expire, which has effectively left over 30 million Americans without an essential lifeline in the midst of a pandemic and economic instability. I think our economy, we're at 10.2% in terms of unemployment. Millions of Americans are still waiting to get back to work. It's been 22 weeks straight. Americans have filed more unemployment claims than during the Great Depression, during the Great Recession, pardon me. We have over 108 million renters around the country struggling to pay rent. And this pandemic has really, I think, caused a great deal of disillusionment in our political system. We've seen a lot of bad actors who tried to capitalize on the discontent and disillusionment. But I think one thing is clear, that this is a time for us to put aside our philosophical, ideological differences to come together as Americans and as Hoosiers, to have honest conversations and to look out for one another with a spirit of love, affection, truth, and a sense of family. So I want to thank each and every one of you for this wonderful forum. I guess we're not going to have a Q&A, but I just want to say shout out to the AFL-CIO, organized labor. We love you. We appreciate you. We're here for you, and we're going to fight like hell to keep you solid. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman. And we certainly appreciate what you've done on behalf of the HEROES Act in particular. That really saved so many families from falling into the depths of desperation early on. Unfortunately, now that's where they're at. And I can speak for my own union. Across this country, we have still nearly 100% unemployment because the entertainment industry was the first to go down and will likely be the last to come back. So I just want to put a little plug in here. On Tuesday night, September 1st, across this country is #RedAlert. And it's on behalf of venues and workers in the entertainment industry to bring awareness. It's not a protest. It's simply coming together to bring awareness to the fact that these workers are struggling, these businesses are struggling, and they need whatever federal legislative help we can conjure up in order to keep the businesses floated and the workers with some income until they can return to work.
That's awesome.
So hopefully we'll be down on the circle that night. So if anyone wants to join us, please do. And again, I want to thank everybody that was here with us this afternoon. This has been great. We've all learned a lot from each of your perspectives, and I certainly hope that we will all bring ourselves to promote each and every one of you as we get into this fall election. I can't say enough about how important it is for all of us to work together to protect the vote. And we want to ask everyone that's out there to make a plan to vote. Yesterday, the clerk's office announced the voting sites that will be open for early voting. I strongly urge you all to go and early vote. If you want to protect your ballot, go early vote. You know, it's like money in the bank. And so you can go to the clerk's office at indy.gov and find out where the locations are near you and go ahead and make that early vote and ensure our victories on November 3rd. Robin?
Oh, I'm sorry, Joanne. Were you asking me something?
I saw that you unmuted. I thought maybe you wanted to say something.
Oh, no.
Okay. Anyone want to add anything before we close this out?
Well, I'll give a closing remark. It's a wonderful, wonderful, and humiliating, humble as I can, to have all our elected officials on. It's a blessing to have the relationships that we have. And as people can see, and they will see, not just in central Indiana, but as this goes out all over, that we have it from the local level to the state level, to the federal level, city council, to our institutes. We're all working together for working people. So one thing I'll say about being in the union is, when you have that contract, it doesn't matter what color you are. Doesn't matter if you're male or female. You're going to get treated the same. What I want this country to understand is, as a Black leader, we're going to have that discussion that seems to be a little uncomfortable for some, but we need to have it as a nation. And labor can lead that conversation. We cannot keep hurting Black people and no justice be done. Because what happens is what you see that follows that. You can't keep shooting unarmed Black people. We can't keep doing that and saying whatever we need to say to make it okay. And then you turn around and see a young white male walk down the street who's just injured one and killed two, and no one does anything. That sends the wrong message. And as elected officials, as labor leaders, that's the conversation that we have to have. I'm so glad that we can have it, and I'm so glad that we are having it, but I'll be real glad when we're doing more about it with policy change to hold people accountable for their actions. And with that being said, I just want to say I love all y'all. I appreciate all y'all for your support. You've always been a great support to me, to my organization, whatever I needed on any level. No one has never not picked up the phone. You all have responded. And that's what I mean about the labor relationship. So with that being said, you know I love you, Mayor. You know I love you, Brother Carson, Sister Jones, Sister Robin, and Sister Jessica. I love you, and I'm so glad you were on here. And let's keep in the fight and keep doing the right thing.
Hear, hear.